I know China is a #1 trading partner. Are we trying to tap other markets? I mean,
Yes, we want
Yes.
an FTA with EU community, for example, and even the US.
yes.
It makes no sense for us to give billions of pesos to a Chinese contractor, state-owned, who will bring the profits back to China, and that profit, because it's state-owned, will go back to fund their different activities in the West Philippine Sea.
Let me give you the situation. Because of the huge list or the long list of infrastructure projects that we want to do, we're running out of workers in the Philippines, Your Honor.
Na bakit natin gigisayin ng ating sarili sa ating sariling mantika? Masyado tayong bilib sa China.
Magandang araw sa ating lahat, mga kababayan po natin. Sa pagharap ni Senator Zubiri at Secretary Diokno dito sa Senado, kaugnay sa nangyaring briefing of Development Budget Coordination Committee sa Committee on Finance, ay napag-usapan nila ang patungkol sa trabaho, sahod, at isa sa pinaka-importante ay itong mga proyektong hawak ng Chinese Gov't Corporation and company, kung saan ang kagustuhan ngayon ni Senator Zubiri ay iba na ito. So hindi na papayagan itong mga Chinese-owned or government company na magkaroon ng kontrata sa ating gobyerno, lalong-lalo na sa infrastructure. Dahil binigyan niya din ni Senator Zubiri na marami umanong palpak na mga construction or nangyaring project na iniwanan nga ng Chinese company at hindi umano nila tinapos. Kaya nakabinbin umano ito hanggang ngayon. At dahil nga sa kanilang ginawang pambubuli umano dito sa West Philippine Sea, ay hindi napapayagan dahil posibleng gagamitin umano ito ng Chinese, posibleng masalvage umano tayo dahil sa ilang proyekto na patuloy tayo nakikipag-deal dito sa China. At ang kanyang mungkahi ay makikipag-ugnayan na lang po tayo umano sa ibang bansa. Mayroon namang Vietnam Construction Company, India, American, or European companies. Huwag na lang umano China. Kasi baka mag-isa umano tayo sa sariling mantika natin. Kasi ang kinikita, dadalhin sa China, tapos ang ginagawa nila ay nag-upgrade ng kanilang kagamitan, which is ang nangyayari ay patuloy tayong hinaharas at binubuli nitong China. Tandaan po natin, mga kababayan, una nang sinabi ng China na makikipag-usap umano sila sa ating gobyerno para idaan sa maayos na usapan itong nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea, which is sila naman ang may kagagawan, hindi naman po tayo simulat sa poll na kahit nakikiusap na tayo, mukhang inabandona na ni Pangulong Digong itong Amerika dahil gusto niya nga itong China, dahil gusto niya na maayos na itong patungkol sa West Philippine Sea. Dinaan na sa diplomasya, pakikipagkaibigan, pero mukhang binabaliwala nila. Patuloy tayong tinatraidor. Ngunit itong Secretary Diokno, para sa kaalaman ng lahat, ay ini-emphasize niya na kapag nangyari umano ito or hindi po natin umano itinuloy itong mga ilang proyekto na nakakontrata or meron tayong agreement sa mga Chinese-owned corporation and companies, ay posibleng maapektuhan umano ang ating ekonomiya, lalong-lalo na nakakontrata ito. At isa pa nga, ang sinasabi ni Secretary Diokno ay ang ibang companies kasi na hindi Chinese ay kulang sila sa mga empleyado. Ngunit yan naman ang kagustuhan ni Secretary Zubiri para mabigyan ng trabaho umano yung mga skilled worker po nating Pilipino at mataasan ang kanilang sahod dahil patuloy umano na lumalabas ng bansa ang ating mga kababayan dahil nagkahangad nga sa mas mataas na sweldo. So speaking of sweldo, mga kababayan po natin, isa yan sa kanilang napag-usapan at nagkaroon dyan ng mainit na diskusyon.
Recent events that have happened in the West Philippine Sea have made us rethink our position on the economic front. And I believe that looking at Vietnam as our, not just a key ally and partner in the region, but as also a template for what is going on within the West Philippine Sea. Remember that Vietnam had more incidences of skirmishes with the Chinese, with our Chinese neighbors early on, even in the 90s and at the early 2000s. They've been able to make a policy shift, dislodging China as the #1 trading partner. They were able to lobby for a free trade agreement from the European Union, they have a free trade agreement with the European Union. Tayo, GSP plus lang. I'm happy that when we met together with Senator Gatchalian and Senator Laura Legarda, that the President of the European Commission, President van der Leyen, has committed to help us with a free trade agreement as well with the European Union. That will be a great help so that we have other markets to tap for our products. But we should also look into free trade agreement with the United States. I think now the position that we're taking and the members of Congress that we've spoken to, I have spoken to several congressmen, both sides from the Democrats and from the Republicans, that they're open to having free trade agreements for certain countries only with strategic allies. Kasi right now, we're pushing for the GSP Plus with the United States. But I think it's about 40 countries. It's a bill spanning 40 countries, and they're not very comfortable with giving all that GSP Plus or that priority or financial, I'd say, openness to their country with other countries. So, are we seeking that, Secretary Diokno? Because I know China is our #1 trading partner, but there will come a time that we do not want to be hostage by a very aggressive neighbor in the north.
I think we
yes,
are
Secretary.
seeking FTA with the US, but I guess we have to wait until the presidential election is over. I don't think they are in a position to do that within the next few months.
Yeah, but I'm asking the policy question side. Are we trying to tap other markets? I mean,
Yes, we want
Yes.
an FTA with EU community, for example, and even the US.
yes, because for example, when I came out with my position on a ban on contracts, government contracts on Chinese government state-owned corporations, I used the context of what Vietnam had done. And people misconstrue that as saying I'm asking for a boycott on Chinese products. Obviously, if we boycott Chinese products, maybe half the equipment that we have here, together with half the things that we have on this table, will probably not be around. My point lang is, we have to have other markets to tap. India could be one. Japan and South Korea definitely could be one. And I'd like to ask a policy question to the NEDA. Are we actually looking for alternative markets for imports? Remember that there is a trade imbalance with China. We're only, I think it's 70-30, 70% the import here. We only, I think by the hundreds of billions of dollars, and we only export 30 plus. Yes, Secretary.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, at the beginning of this administration, the president asked, how many bilateral and regional agreements do we have? And he was so surprised to find that we had very few compared to the countries around us. And so we have not been aggressive in expanding access to trade with our neighbors. And so I think the primacy, I think, is to, and this is what the president says, to speed up negotiations with many countries, not only US or EU, but even our neighbors, because there's so much limitation with the ASEAN, but if you can have these free trade agreements with many other countries, it's what Vietnam has been aggressively doing. That's why they are now the center of the world for investment, because they're very aggressive in opening up their places for investment, their country for. That's what I think should be our high priority, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sec. I'm happy for you to say that, because that has been the strategy of Vietnam, and you're absolutely correct. It's now the center of the world. Every time we talk to U.S. senators and congressmen, they've been saying we'd like to have a portion of the businesses leaving China to go to the Philippines rather than all Vietnam, because they're now having a strategic partnership, economic partnership with Vietnam. So I believe, and they had a long war with Vietnam, decimated half their population, including half the natural resources of that country. But now they're making amends, and I believe the United States also will be coming over to coming with a very soon with a trade mission to hopefully also ask the Philippines to look at the U.S. with renewed vigor rather, and we'll push for that free trade agreements. But even sourcing materials, why don't we focus on local? Tama po sinabi ni Senator Binay, katabi ko, why don't we focus local? Like, why are we buying fruits and vegetables from China when we can actually grow these fruits and vegetables here in the Philippines? Indonesia did that policy shift.
Indonesia banned all the rare earth metals from export. That's why tumaas ang presyo ng nickel, tumaas ang presyo ng rare earth minerals. Because their focus of Widodo, and this was Widodo's policy, the focus of President Widodo is gawin dito sa Indonesia yung processing at yung hindi lamang po siyang byproduct or hindi lang po siya raw materials, pero high value products ang i-develop. So I spoke to investors because I'm trying to get as many investors as we can. As you know, we've been doing the rounds in the US and other countries to bring investments here. And they were saying in Indonesia, they're giving a plethora of financial incentives for these companies to actually build battery plants, rare earth metals processing facilities, all in Indonesia. So I'm hoping that we can follow suit, Secretary, because I think that's a policy that we should take. If you want us an independent foreign policy, we have to focus on an independent and strategic and strengthened economic policy so that we're not hostage by any other country. So, and I'm sure the Secretary will agree with me on that. Secretary,
Yes,
do we have the same mindset? Secretary.
we are thinking of the same thing, but I think before we ban, for example, the export of ore, we have to make sure that there are facilities available in the Philippines for developing for value added.
Well, just for the information of the body, I spoke to an investor that is they're actually in Korea now signing an MOU with Poksu, which is one of the biggest battery developers in Korea. And alam mo sinabi nila? Ang sabi ng mga American businessmen, we would like to buy batteries directly from your company, but would you assemble them in the Philippines? I was completely taken by surprise there, pleasantly surprised, that was the mention, na they no longer put high level processing plants in the Philippines, Secretary. Just for your information. I just found out about 2 nights ago because they were leaving and they had no gifts to give. So I had to buy, I gave them yung giveaways namin dito para sa mga embassies para madala-dala nila yung regalo dun after the signing of the MOU. So just to let you know, pero binayaran ko ulit. I paid for it again. On the Chinese contractors, Your Honors, I know they go through NEDA approval, Secretary RC. It makes no sense, no? And I came out with this publicly the other day, both in the show of Karen Davila and then kay Noli De Castro in his radio program. Sabi ko, it makes no sense for us to give billions of pesos to a Chinese contractor, state-owned, who will bring the profits back to China, and that profit, because it's state-owned, will go back to fund their different activities in the West Philippine Sea. Parang niluluto natin ang ating sarili sa sariling mantika. Ika nga. Do we still have several Chinese contractors, state-owned contractors doing contracts for us here being paid by Filipino taxpayers' money, including those of the Coast Guard and Navy na kinakaltasan na kanilang sweldo ng buwis na binabayaran nila taon-taon. So, may we have an answer on that?
Okay, in case decision is made to ban Chinese contractors from participating in pipeline projects of the national government, it may have the following potential effects, right? For example, implementation of official development assistance projects from bilateral and multilateral ODA partners alike, particularly for projects considering multiple country participation, including China, as a member of the Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the World Bank. So that it might affect the implementation of those projects.
Pero Sec,
Procurement, let me finish, Your Honor. Procurement of locally funded projects and even PPP implementation if the main contractors, suppliers, or subcontractors will be Chinese firms or Chinese nationals. Potential impact on the economy for possible delays in the projects that will be affected. And of course, we have to shift to the financing for those projects that have been requested from China. Let me give you the situation. Because of the huge list or the long list of infrastructure projects that we want to do, we're running out of workers in the Philippines, Your Honor. I think you will agree with me. We're running out of work, plus also the private sector workers. And we need foreign workers, maybe Indian workers, Chinese workers, etc.
but Secretary, we have to also stand up for our troops in the West Philippine Sea. We should not be allowed, they should not be allowed to be bullied. I think we all agree to that.
Agree.
Yes. So, again, babalik ko yung statement na bakit natin gigisayin ang ating sarili sa ating sariling mantika. Masyado tayong bilib sa China. I mean, we can always get South Korean contractors. We can always get Japanese contractors. We can get Vietnamese contractors. They make fantastic infrastructure. We can get Indian also supplies from India. You know, Secretary, kausap ko si Secretary Bautista. Ang sabi niya sa akin, ang palpak lahat ng Chinese contracts. Hindi natuloy. North South Rail, they abandoned it. All these contracts that were made in the previous administration are abandoned. Correct? You're nodding your head, yes. So it's
Mr. Chair, SP, if I may just interject to support the line of argument of
With the
SP.
permission of the Senate President.
Thank you, SP. And thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at an Asia Times article citing NEDA statistics na as a percentage of total ODA received by the Philippines as of June 2018, China accounted for a mere 0.8% of the estimated $13 billion received. NEDA statistics po ito, Mr. Chair, SP. While, for example, Japan, on the other hand, accounted for 40.3% of the total. And in that list po, China also trailed Australia, South Korea, the European Union, and France in total ODA given. 6 lang po siya, NEDA statistics,
Yeah,
SP,
because,
Mr. Chair.
thank you very much, my distinguished sponsor, distinguished colleague. And that's my point, Mr. Secretary. Masyado tayong believe sa China, kung yung talagang dumarating dito galing China ay napakaliit.
Your Honor, that the statistics are correct. There are only a few Chinese projects, okay? Most of the projects done during the Duterte administration are financed by ADB or JICA. However, as I mentioned, when it's ADB project, any member country can actually compete in the bid out, okay, in the bidding of the project. And if it requires a Chinese contractor, if the Chinese contractor wins, we cannot do anything about that.
Usually the style is, di ba, pag kumuha tayo ng COICA to do the feasibility study.
Yeah.
Diba?
Kung ano po, yung
COICA, Korean government yun.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
JICA, I hope that the bridge that you will develop to Cavite and Bataan will be from a reputable country such as Japan or South
Could be
Korea.
a Japanese firm, but the workers do not have to be Japanese kasi wala na akong workers from Japan eh. Wala na rin mga South Korean na...
I absolutely agree.
So, kaya hindi ho natin kontrolado yung who's going to do the project.
I don't disagree with you on the workers, and that's my next issue. Actually, that's my last policy statement on the workers. I have no problem on your point, but we have other options. We're not saying we don't have to make it. It can be a policy shift when it comes to that, because the track record shows palpak ang mga projects ng China dito sa ating bansa. They were supposed to do the Clark. What happened to them? Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the rail on the way to Bicol. Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the Mindanao Rail. Ganda-ganda. Gone with the wind. It's now in the West Philippine Sea. So my point is, let us deal with, I think, reputable and reliable, friendly partners with like-minded ideals. And I think that would be a better option for our country. Kasi kung hindi nakataya palagi tayo, kung let's say nagkagulo na sa West Philippine Sea, Secretary. You know, we have several Chinese nationals in this country, to be honest with you. When I go jogging at night, I see several young men from mainland China with short hair jogging around my village. You know, I'm worried that we might, wala si Senator Bato dito, pero I'm worried baka pinasukan na tayo dito sa Pilipinas. Ngayon sa Ross Boulevard, nandyan na sila. They're what you call at your doorstep. There was a movie, Lions at the Gate. So, ang punto ko dyan, what is the policy of ours for protecting our sovereignty in this country? Maybe we need to make a nationalist stand on how we can look at other options for our country. Because as the record show, palpak din naman yung kontrata nila. They never followed through with it. And I think that on the future projects, you want to do the bridges connecting Region 6, you want to do the Cavite, Bataan Bridge. Why don't we look at Japan? Why don't we look at South Korea on that aspect? Moving on to my third policy question. You mentioned it correctly. Wala na tayong workers. Bakit po, Secretary, most of the, wala na po tayong workers? Because I'll tell you, most of our workers, especially skilled workers, are abroad. It's very true. They are abroad. Most of your best welders and electricians and all are in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East. They're all working abroad. And why, Your Honors? because, to be honest, they don't feel that they can survive with the salaries that we have here in the Philippines. I know you came out already publicly stating that you guys are against legislative wage hikes, but I'll be honest with you, Secretary, kawawang-kawawa po ang ating mga kababayan. Yung self-rated poverty in and out every year in, year out in our country is always over 50%. Kalahati po ng ating kababayan, nararamdaman po nilang kahirapan. How can you survive with then 570 pesos a day salary? And now plus 40 is 610. Eh tumaas po, naghihingi po ng rate hike ang ating mga public utility vehicles. Tapos tumaas ang presyo ng kuryente, tumaas ang presyo ng gasolina. Ang bigas po ay averaging 40 to 50 pesos. And I know that, you can ask the speaker went to the palengke, I'm sure the speaker saw the prices of bigas per kilo. Tapos, yung masama pa, yung 40 pesos rate hike, Metro Manila pa lang. Metro Manila lang. Sa amin ni Mina, sa Mindanao, it has not moved. You know what the daily wage earner in her province earns? 340 pesos. OMG. What can you buy with 340 pesos for a family of 5? The rice cost is the same. The energy cost is even more expensive in Lanao del Sur. The water maybe is free because nag-iimbak na lang sa likod. Pero lahat po, yung Jollibee, McDonald's, pareho yung presyo nila doon kaysa dito. Pareho. So my point is, I think we also need to look into a possibility that we increase the wages of our people a bit. And just to show you, Mr. Secretary, before they would harp that we are the second highest minimum wage in the region. Well, statistics now, today, have shown that Indonesia increased their minimum wage to about 842 pesos a day. Malaysia is now 854 pesos a day. Singapore is 2,486 pesos a day. Kaya ang daming Singaporean, ang daming Filipinos sa Singapore. Almost all their H&R, yung hotel and restaurant, are Filipinos. It is only, we are at par now with Vietnam, but I'd like you to know that when I spoke to our Vietnam counterparts, they are also thinking of increasing the minimum wage in Vietnam. So ano po ang punto ko dito, Mr. Secretary? Let me give you the figures that I saw in the news. This was only in the news the last 2 days. Our friends, JG Summit, net income sourced by 9.5 billion first half of 2023. Ayala Corporation net income up by 55%. PAL earns 13.6 billion record net income. Megaworld net income surges 71% in first half of 2023. Al Jazeera also shows news reports that Philippine economy grows fastest pace in 40 years. Pero ang ating mga workers, Mr. Secretary, are in the rut. They are in the rut. Can we give them a bit of a fighting chance? Na I truly believe if you put in the effort to help our workers, we will have more productivity and maybe we can entice more of them to come home. Yun na po. And I hope that you can agree that maybe we can find a number which is acceptable. Because I've spoken to Frederick Go. I've spoken to Megaworld, Kevin Tan. I've spoken to a lot of the Taipans, and they've said, kaya nila. Pwede. Pwede. And even the MSMEs, I know you're saying that mahirapan ang MSMEs. I think, let's say, for example, a 100 peso additional minimum daily wage will be a welcome respite from them and not enough to break their banks, Secretary. I hope that you can sympathize with us, and I think the Senate, I have sympathy from the senators on this. Secretary, would you like to give an opinion?
All right. First of all, let me just state that the Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge is going to be financed by ADB, Asian Development Bank, and the AIIB. Okay. Now, on the position of the proposed 150 wage hike, Your Honor, one of our major concern right now is inflation. Okay, inflation. The Monetary Board has before we have a policy meeting tomorrow, and so I remember that our assumption for the wage increase is 24 pesos this year, and then 25 pesos next year. Okay, that will be consistent with our target of 2 to 4% inflation rate. Now, with the 40 peso recently passed wage increase, then we are going to make the adjustment. Okay, so Metro Manila, but that will be no. This will be for the whole country. Yung minimum wage increase. Now, the proposed 150 peso increase could bring the country's inflation rate further away. Right now, baka 5.6% po yung average for the year, baka tumaas ulit yung inflation. And also, that kind of increase will have a second round effect, which would mean that wages could be passed on by businesses, industries, and other institutions to consumers. Yun lang po ang concern namin. No? So we might solve this wage problem, but mas mataas po ang impact na sa inflation.
Pero
Mas
Sec,
marami pong ma-apektuhan
Opo,
na tao.
I understand. No? We all studied economics here that will also increase cost of goods. But Secretary, babalik din naman sa ekonomiya yan eh. Babalik din kasi sa ekonomiya yun eh. What we need to focus are high inflation rates on, for example, our energy sector. We're the most expensive. Diyan tayo nagkakaisa. Isa po tayo sa pinakamahal. Kaya lahat ng investors na ine-entice ko pupunta dito, unang-unang tanong nila, lalo ng mga Hapon, ba't ang mahal ng kuryente nyo mas mura sa Thailand? Ba't ang mahal ng kuryente mo mas mura sa Vietnam? Yan ang kailangan na natin pababain. Food cost and electricity cost. Di ba po? Cost of living. Now, on the increase in wages, I feel that it will go back to the people. It will just go back to the economy. Because now they have a chance to be able to bring their kids to Jollibee, they have a chance to bring their kids to the malls and buy a little something for them. So, lalago yung ekonomiya eh. Ako kasi, I'd say, train of thought that dapat talaga suportahan natin yung ekonomiya para lalo lumakas ang ekonomiya by giving them a chance to be able to spend. It's for more spending. It's spending opportunities by our people. So, I agree with you, Sec. It may increase inflation, but on the long run, if we bring down electricity costs, if we bring down, let's say, other costs no, on manufacturing, I think we can temper it. We can manage it. Yes, Sec. RC.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may also respond. Yesterday, we presented data showing us that unemployment rate is comparatively low already in the Philippines. But the problem is really the quality of jobs. I emphasize that the lack of quality jobs and nothing less than increasing investments, particularly in strategic areas like manufacturing, could improve that quality of jobs, and with the quality of jobs, then earnings of workers would be much higher. Now, Mr. Chair, obviously we understand what the problems are: high cost of energy, poor infrastructure, high cost of doing business, and the PDP, the plan is we are trying to address those. But what I'm trying to say, Mr. Chair, that if we don't address if we address the problem of low incomes now by raising the wages, by legislative fiat, and these other factors that are required by investors to come in will come much later. What will happen is this, and these are real data, these are based on the economy-wide information that we have, is this. Suppose you increased wages by 150 pesos. The GDP will slow down in the first semester. But our GDP will contract by 0.2 to 0.9%. And then the unemployment rate will also increase from 0.3 to 1%. The inflation has already been mentioned, that will increase. And worse, the number of unemployed will actually increase. Yeah, that's the
gist of it.
Yeah,
but Secretary, my final point, because I'm running out of time. My final point there is that the lack of quality jobs is also because of the lack of quality skilled workers that we have. They're all leaving. The diaspora that we're seeing now is because of the low wages. And I'm not talking about minimum wage. Dapat pati yung middle income. Dapat dagdagan din sila. Yung nurses, ang problema natin sa nurses, it's simple, Mr. Secretary. The problem of nurses is they're getting offered jobs for high-paying jobs abroad. Ganun lang yun. We have hospitals in Bukidnon and in Mindanao, they're being paid 20,000 a month. Come on. So, they're really going to leave. And I'm only working with minimum wage here, but you have to see even middle income, blue collar, white collar jobs, they also have to increase the rates. I just read to you the incomes of all these companies. We know them all, they're all our friends. They can afford it. My point being is, when we asked we had a Pulse Asia, I had a Pulse Asia rider question. Are you in favor or not in favor of the proposal to increase minimum wage by 150 pesos in the private sector nationwide? 97%, almost all. Obviously, everybody wants an increase in wages, right? Almost all. My point being is, kailangan talaga nila. They wouldn't answer this way if they felt that their salaries are okay, inflation is low, prices are cheap, they can afford it. But my point is, we have to give them a chance. With these rates now, if we continue, you will not find any workers, Sec.Diokno, Secretary Balisacan, for your projects. Because they will not come back to the Philippines. They are comfortably located abroad. You can ask Secretary Villanueva of TESDA, Secretary Joel, who used to be head of TESDA. Right now, TESDA, all the graduates of TESDA training centers are applying for passports and they're applying abroad. That's the long and short of it. We will not have jobs. And that's why our population of overseas workers are growing by the thousands every week. Yun ang aking punto dyan. I mean, you also have to look into the fact that there might come a time na wala tayong workers. Alam mo, maraming resorts sa Camiguin, sa Cagayan de Oro, walang ma-hire na waiters, chefs, and hotel managers. They're all abroad, particularly Singapore. So yun na po. That's my point. I agree. It's a chicken or the egg scenario. Do we increase salaries to entice them here, or entice them to come home? Or do we keep our rates low and you will not get anything? We'll just have to do AI. That's the whole point. So, and then when I spoke to American companies, by the way, they were shocked and appalled that our rates were this low. They want to come in here, and I mentioned it to you, Secretary, I went to you to Malacanang because there was an eco zone that was telling them, wag mong bigyan ng malaking sweldo yung mga tao nyo kasi baka hindi kayo makakakuha ng incentives. And it was debunked by Secretary Diokno. That is not true. Pero my point is, there are companies that want to come here and give decent jobs to their employees. So yan ang dapat itap natin. Mostly Western nations, no? Western countries. So yun lamang po, that's my point. I know we differ on policy opinions on this issue, but I think we have to make a political stand if we have to make a political stand on this particular issue. And I think the President has a big heart. May puso yung Pangulo natin. If he understands that around the region they're increasing already their minimum wages, I think he'll understand that there might be the need to make these sacrifices for the people. And by the way, the 40 pesos, Secretary, is only NCR. That's why I'm so angry. What happened to the wage boards all over the country? Mindanao, wala pang increase. Nakakainis mga yan. Kaya nga, we want to do their job for them. So maraming salamat, Sec.